And we welcome to the program Jim Leggette, lecturer of economics at Mississippi State University. Hey, Jim, good to see you.
Greetings, sir. How are you doing this fine day?
I'm doing fantastic. So the economy is
Yes.
something that is always in focus, and it becomes even more so as we approach big-time election year next year. That seems to be top of mind of voters in virtually every poll. They place that at the top of their list. And there are lots of conflicting reports. The president and his surrogates want the American people to believe that his policies, his plans are improving their economic situation. And, of course, his opponents want to point out that they're worse off than they were before he took office. I've honestly caught a little exaggeration on both sides. I think it's fair to say.
That's the business.
Exactly right. That's the business. But of note today is we got the arguably the Fed's favorite gauge of inflation, the PCE, the personal consumption expenses. It came in a reasonably good report. The investors in the markets seem to like it because that kind of signals that maybe the Fed will stay put and even start to retreat on interest rates. What's your take on all this and where we are today?
Well, I think the way you kind of frame this problem is there's each side wants to say you either stink or you're either great. But if you kind of do it, because that's the nature of the business. But unemployment's about as low as it's ever been. What's 3.8, 3.9. Inflation is going in the right direction. It's not where it needs to be. But I think for whatever reason, there's just kind of a funk out there. I think interest rates kicked a bunch of folks into what. Housing market is problematic with that because. I take our community. People built big houses, and or either have big houses that were affordable 2 years ago. Now all of a sudden, they're priced out. So I'm glad I'm not a builder speculating on luxury homes. But I think that's kind of the price you pay for cheap money. I guess I'm channeling my inner Hayek here. And so I think that funk is almost overtaking the logic because if you knew nothing about anything and said we had 5% growth and 3.9% unemployment and inflation going the right direction, the election be over. But there's that funk out there for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And all those wars certainly don't help, But the markets, I think, as you pointed out, the markets seem to like the news. And I think I just looked up at the break. The Fed meets the 12th and the 13th. I had to bet, but I'm not going to bet. Is they'll hold where they are because I don't think you've gotten inflation where you want it to be. They want to. I'm a purist. It says it should be zero, but So we'll see. But,
zero. Okay.
Yeah.
And the Fed target.
I'm a purist.
I got you. Well, the Fed target, as you know, is 2%. That's what they refer to as price stability, right? One of their mandates, price stability and optimum employment. Yeah, exactly. So, and in general, back in my days of studying economics, Jim, it was 4% was always kind of thought to be the so-called natural rate of unemployment, and we're actually below that. We
have been for a while.
Yeah, have a robust jobs market, and normally from a political perspective, that's good for an incumbent, whomever is in office at the time, because that's the first thing people look at. Do I have a job? But I think the fact that jobs have been plentiful and the job market has been in a scenario where demand exceeds supply for so long, that seems to have kind of fallen off. People are accustomed to having work and knowing they can get work. What's more in focus is what they're paying at the pump, what they're paying at the grocery store, and what their overall household finances look like.
Yeah, and I think probably what didn't fit in that interest rates, particularly if you're carrying a balance with a adjustable rate, be it a credit card or mortgage, that's a kick in the butt. Or if you're in a nice house and you want to move up, but you can't afford to, and then
Yeah.
if it, getting the dynamics of the real estate market is, well, I can't afford to move up to the next level, which means the younger folks can't afford to get into the market. So that I think that funk is kind of there. I think folks are feeling stung, for lack of a better word, about the inflation of a year and a half, 2 years ago. Remember, it was 9.6 for a while, and maybe you and I talked about it. We didn't really like that, and remember, we didn't like the late 70s, and really didn't want to do that part. And maybe, and we'll see, maybe the Fed has threaded the needle and achieved that soft landing, or where
Yeah.
you broke the back of inflation, but hadn't didn't kill the patient in the process. And maybe Chairman Powell's channeling his inner Paul Volcker, because he had basically had to kill or certainly wound the economy to get it there. But if you look at say from '84 forward, that was a pretty miraculous period of economic growth. And you probably remember the Morning in America commercials and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, I absolutely do. And it propelled Reagan into office. That specifically, I would argue, did. The Carter administration just mishandled the economy, and inflation got out of control. Interest rates got up in the 18-19%, as I recall, and mortgages. Nobody paid that for a mortgage. You bought what were called assumptions, as I recall, back then, where you could just assume an existing mortgage. Housing, that big news out of the National Association of Realtors this morning, that the pending home sales index is, I think, the lowest since these records have been established and maintained, and that's 2001, so the lowest in 22 years. A lot of that's just because there's no inventory. As you said, there's no turnover.
Yeah, no turnover. To be fair, in full disclosure, my wife's a real estate broker here in Starkville, so she understands all that sort of stuff. And I've learned far more about how all that stuff works. But the inventory issue was one of those things. And now they kind of have inventory, but it's not turning like they want it to. Starkville's probably be kind of a unique beast in the sense that you have the university and folks buy condos for their kids because it's a better deal, as well as they like football games, and some folks rather have their playhouse in Starkville than the beach.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your crystal ball saying? Where do you see the economy going next year? I mean, this year's virtually done. One more month. You think the Fed starts to reverse? Do you think you saw the GDP reading revised was incredible, over 5%? Yeah. What do you see next year?
Because I remember when one of the things Trump wanted to achieve, he wanted to achieve 3% and never could get there.
One quarter, I think.
Yeah. And then that little thing called a pandemic came along and it all went to heck. But right. I think what's going to probably happen is I'm reasonably optimistic we'll continue to unwind the effects of all the stimulus that was too much of a good thing. I think, and if they do, at some point the Fed will loosen up a little bit. I would not anticipate a lot. Now, what's kind of curious, I have a graph for 30 years worth of the federal funds rate I use in class. Yeah. We are at kind of the 30-year average now.
Okay.
But our view has kind of been tainted, or is tainted the right word, that we had abnormally low rates for 2 to 3 years, and that distorts kind of everything.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and that's recent. That's recent memory. So, looking at 5% Fed funds rate seems awfully high, but as you point out, it's somewhat in the middle over an extended period of time. It's just high relative to what it was for the 2 or 3 years leading up to this very compressed period of rate hikes.
Yeah, and maybe the I guess people will write these studies. Maybe one of my colleagues would do it. Maybe this kind of ratcheting it up did the job.
Yeah.
4% as opposed to 2% where people freak. I think and maybe Milton Friedman was right about a lot of things, I think, but argues that stable and predictable rules are kind of the way to go do that, because if you bake in bake in it's going to be a 0.25% till we solve this problem, people kind of believe it. Well, you just wake up one day, oh, congratulations, federal funds rate went up a percentage point. That's probably induces chaos.
No doubt about it. Faith, confidence, and certainty. That's the name of the game. Jim, always good to talk to you. Appreciate you coming on. We'll be talking soon, I'm sure. Thanks a lot.
I'm counting on it, and if I don't speak to you, have a good holiday, sir.
You too, Jim. Appreciate it, man. We're coming right back, folks.